All right, we've got here an older Blues Deluxe. And I know that it's older because this one has the input jacks and effects loop and foot switch jacks all the same size. On later ones, the input jacks and effects loop switch got larger on the nuts and washer because they changed the design. And the later ones, those jacks are much more reliable than on these early ones. The repair ticket says sound cutting out. So on anything in the Blues or hot rod, these 5-watt resistors and 5-watt diodes, they're in a different place on the hot rod, but they're the same circuit, are suspect because they burned the board. You can see the discoloration on the board here. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see it's like someone spilled coffee in this area. That's the board itself burning. These are 470 ohm resistors in the hot rods and in the Blues Deluxe. In the Blues DeVilles, they tend to be 330 ohms, which you would think would make the problem worse, but due to other factors in the design, these two resistors burn less in the hot rod, the Blues DeVilles, but these Zener diodes still are problematic. The filter caps that they use in these amps often leak. These are not visibly leaking. That does not mean that they're any good. And these old input jacks tend to be flimsy and desoldered, break the solder joints. And that's, it may be a combination of these two things. So first of all, let's plug into the input. Turn the volume up a little bit and I'll turn the reverb up to see if there's a nastiness, which might be from that low voltage supply doing weird things. No, that doesn't mean that low voltage supply isn't on death's door, but the voltages on the rails seem to be working. Let's go into the power amp in. And what this does is this amp has a solid state effects loop, which is also powered by that same circuit that powers the reverb. So when you engage the effects loop, that solid state circuitry is in the circuit. When you're not using the effects loop, a big chunk of it's not. That all sounds pretty good. It's always going to sound darker going straight into an effects loop return straight from a Strat, because that's not the right impedance for these pickups. One other common cause of stuff cutting out on these is the plastic molded speaker cable. So let me play a chord and kind of manipulate that with my fingers. All right, that's not happening. So let's see if any of the tubes are problematic. Well, I gave them all a wiggle, and I tapped on them, and they're not microphonic, and they're not going when wiggled. So next thing to do is put the guitar down on a stand. And I could hook up my signal generator, but then you guys would be hearing pure sine waves, and that's aggravating. So I'm just going to strum the chords, and then I'm going to press all over the board and see if I can get it to cut out. right, nothing obviously wrong there, so let's move the volume in tone pots. All right, I think I found the problem. I'm moving the volume control. Oh, was it on the drive setting? It was on drive. That's why this volume wasn't doing anything. But go back to drive. That might be what the owner is referring to. There's also a nasty sound in the background. There's a rhythm to that decay. You hear it? It's not a steady sound that just fades out in volume. The envelope isn't a steady slope downward. It's got a whoa, 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 whoa to it. And I'm not sure how much of that you're going to be hearing through the lav mic. Let me try that one more time. That had two rhythmic elements to it. There was a bop, 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 and there was a bop, 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 bop. And it's all in how that envelope is being modulated. And that switching noise is real high. Let's try the clean channel. It's there too. It's a bop, 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 bop. So what I am hearing is capacitors charging and discharging. So I suspect that if I change out these 5-watt components for new ones, which are mounted off the board, and I try to repair whatever heat damage is in this area, and I probably need time to change out these 5 small electrolytic caps. This amp's from the 90s. And change out these filter caps. And in that process, make sure that all the solder joints and all the pots and jacks are good. And I clean the pots. Not only will that scratchiness go away when I move the pots, but that background bop, 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 on the decay should go away as well. I've already done an inspection of things that are hard to see, like the screen grid resistors on the output tubes. They seem okay. This era, the plate resistors used can be problematic, particularly for some reason in the phase inverter, and for some reason not as much in the not as much in the blues amps as in the hot rod. And the hot rod's got an 82K and 100K, like most Marshalls and Fenders. The blues has got like a 91K and 100K and a 10K. They're doing a little different setup on it. It's not as common for those resistors to go south, but it can happen. So sometimes you get big, dramatic, obvious failures with these. You know, you have all the way to a burn on these diodes and resistors, which you can barely see me pointing at. Sometimes these things spew their guts out one end. That's very nice of them to say, hey, change me. That was a mic drop moment. But in this case, that subtle weirdness on the decay is what's problematic, because that indicates that there's a failure that's building up to be a big failure. In the meantime, it's a background issue, and those dirty pots might be causing the cutout that he's talking about. There may be some other thing that happens once the amp gets really hot. I'll let this run for a while and retest it. There's also a sound as if the filter caps aren't smoothing off the peaks of the rectifier. I'm going to move the mic real close to the speaker, see if you can hear that. It's very fortunate for our ears that our brains are very good at hearing patterns, at hearing rhythms, because what at first just is kind of a white noise thing, you pick out that no, that's a series of cycles. For example, for a while, my wife was falling asleep to a white noise app on her phone that I could hear next to her. And she had this one that she liked that was supposed to be a box fan, but I could hear the loop. It was supposed to be a continuous noise from a box fan, but I heard the loop, and I heard whatever fan that they had recorded was not completely healthy. And I would lie in bed just being driven nuts by hearing something that needed to be fixed. It had an erratic rhythm to it, and then the loop would kind of bump when it reset, and it drove me nuts. And we had a fruitful conversation, and she uses something else now, and she's laughing at me. I'm not throwing you under the bus, love.
It's relaxing.
She finds it relaxing. I'm mother Chewbacca in Cloud City, so that's where we're at. Anyway, I'm gonna let this run for a while and see if anything worse happens, but I've got enough to know what this app needs.